Over 7,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria.
Of Nigeria, millions of Christians are persecuted by Islamic terror groups.
This week, President Trump threatened to send the U.S. military into Nigeria and to cut off American aid for not doing enough to protect Nigerian Christians.
My posture is, particularly in the monotheistic traditions, that God is typically described as being all-knowing, all-powerful, and all good. Yet I look back through history, earthquake in Lisbon, Portugal. When was it? 1755, somewhere around there. 80,000 people died. By the way, that earthquake took place on All Saints' Day, in the morning, when most people, Lisbon, one of the holiest cities in Europe, most people were in church. Churches were the largest structures of the day. If you have an earthquake, what's the first building to collapse? It's the ones that are the largest, the most susceptible. So, people died in churches. Then, there's a tsunami that basically wiped Lisbon off the map. Either God is not all good or God is not all powerful. But it's not clear whether God could be both of those at the same time for that event.
One of the sad reality about Christian killings is that mostly it happens in the church. Life is unfair. People lose loved ones. People get horribly sick. People get murdered, raped, abused, and molested. You watch the news, another shooting, another war, another scandal, and you can feel the question rising, the one we're often afraid to ask out loud. If there is a God, how can he allow such a world to exist? Why do bad things happen to his people if there's such a loving God? Forget everything you believe. What if the millions of years of our existence were not guided by a creator, but by the slow, blind march of evolution? For millions of years, there was only one law: kill or be killed. This is the grim ledger of nature, where fitness wasn't a choice, but a life or death verdict. We evolved, we populated, and one day we will pass. If this is all just a biological process driven by the survival of the fittest, does that mean our presence on Earth is nothing more than a temporary cosmic accident? An advanced animal's death is simply the survival of the fittest in action. But if we are more than that, if we are beloved by a creator, then we must confront the central problem. Where is the loving God when tragedy strikes? There is no sin in the wild. When a lion hunts, it isn't committing murder, it's feeding. If humans are truly on the same biological footing, then the moral framework we cling to is a lie. Are we ready to embrace a world where bad things don't exist? Critics demand, look at the millions who die. How can a loving God allow such suffering? But here's the uncomfortable truth. If there is no God, those deaths aren't wrong. They are simply nature. Breaking news, 19 children won't come home tonight. The world explodes in rage and tears. But here's the question nobody dares ask in the middle of the grief. Why are we shocked at all? If life is just survival of the fittest, then the shooter is simply the fittest today. Congratulations, evolution, you win. Except no tribe on Earth, no Inuit hunter, no Yanomami warrior, no Scandinavian skeptic actually believes that for a second. The instant blood hits the hallway floor, every human heart from every corner of the planet lights up with the same blazing alarm. This is an abomination. That synchronized global scream isn't culture, it's conscience. And conscience has a manufacturer's tag that reads, made by God. Forget the Quran, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita. The single most persuasive sermon ever preached happens in silence the moment you lock eyes with a starving 5-year-old whose ribs are showing. In that instant, every language on the planet suddenly speaks the same mother tongue. This is wrong. Fix it now. No parliament voted on that feeling. No evolutionary psychologist can explain why it overrides self-preservation. That ache in your gut when a child suffers is the fingerprint of God so deep that even people spend their whole lives trying to rationalize it away, but it keeps bleeding through every worldview like light through cracked stained glass. What if the problem of evil is actually the solution? The fact that we can even label an event bad means we are borrowing from a divine concept of good that shouldn't exist in a completely material world. Strip away God and death becomes just another Tuesday. Lions don't commit murder, they collect groceries. Earthquakes don't sin, they redecorate. So why do we treat a tsunami that kills 200,000 the same as a dictator who kills 200,000? One is tragedy, the other is evil. But in a godless universe, both are identical. Stronger forces eliminating weaker ones. The moment you call an ICU heroic for keeping grandma's heart beating one more week, you've declared war on nature. You've said, life is precious, death is the enemy, and weakness deserves mercy. 3 beliefs that evolution laughs at. Congratulations. You just confessed that deep down, you believe in a moral law that your own worldview says should never have evolved. All this to say, why do bad things happen if there's such a loving God? My response would be, intellectually, atheism is clean. No God, no transcendent law, no actual evil, just nature doing its thing. Then you walk into a courtroom and watch a mother collapse when the judge sentences the man who tortured her little girl, and every person in the room, including the atheist reporters, feels the same white-hot fury that this was wrong. Not inefficient, not unfortunate, wrong. That word didn't come from natural selection. It came from the same voice that once thundered, "Let there be light," and is still thundering inside your ribcage, refusing to let you call evil normal. Imagine God installed a cosmic shock collar on every human soul, one step toward evil and zap paralysis. You'd never cheat on your taxes, never cheat on your spouse, never cheat on a test. We'd have perfect compliance and zero morality. A dog that doesn't bite because it's muzzled isn't noble. It's just muzzled. God refused to muzzle us. He wanted a bride who walks down the aisle because she wants to, not because invisible hands are dragging her. So he gave us a loaded gun called freedom and said, you can aim it at me if you want. Most days we do. And every time another school shooting or genocide scrolls across the screen, we shake our fists at heaven screaming, why didn't you stop them? But the same hand that could have frozen the trigger finger is the hand that has nail scars, because real love bleeds before it forces. The world we see today, therefore, might not be a reflection of God's desire, but a tragic monument to the real and consequential power of choice that he granted to his creations. God didn't just fling stars into space like cheap confetti. He composed a symphony of galaxies, tuned the constants of physics to a razor's edge, painted nebulae for the sheer joy of color. And then, in the wildest flex of generosity the universe has ever seen, he sculpted creatures out of dust, breathed his own breath into them, stamped his image on their souls, and handed them the keys to the whole masterpiece with 2 words, choose me. He could snap his fingers and turn every potential murderer into a mannequin, every lie into silence, every rape into impossibility. But the second he did, the music would stop, the portrait would become plastic, love would die in the cradle. So instead, he risks everything, every genocide, every crucifixion, every tear, just to keep open the possibility that one day you and I will look him in the eye and say, I love you, and actually mean it. Imagine the creepiest marriage proposal ever. A groom standing over his bride with a gun to her head, whispering, say you love me, or I pull the trigger. She'd say the words, tears streaming, voice trembling. But every sane person would call it rape, not romance. Now picture God doing the same thing on a universal scale, forcing every knee to bow, every tongue to confess, every heart to beat, I love. You under threat of instant hellfire, he would have perfect obedience and zero love. Instead, the God of the Bible does the unthinkable. He gets down on one knee in a sign-soaked world, hands scarred from nails we drove, and asks the girl who just spat in his face, will you marry me? He risks the no. He endures the affairs, the screaming, the running away, because only a yes that survives 1,000 better offers is a yes worth spending eternity with. And in order for love to be genuine, there has to be a choice. So here's the picture. Picture this. God the Creator, who could vaporize galaxies with a whisper, looks you dead in the eye, hands you a loaded .45, spins the cylinder, and says, "You're free to put this barrel against my heart and pull the trigger whenever you want." That's the level of freedom he actually gave us. Not a plastic toy gun, not a water pistol, a real hair trigger weapon capable of shredding the most important relationship in existence. Because if you can't say, "I hate you, I'm out," then "I love you, I'm in," is just noise coming out of a hostage's mouth. Real love has to be able to kill the lover. Otherwise, it's just advanced slavery wearing perfume. The animal who just walked into a school and opened fire on kindergartners, the monster who raped and butchered an entire village, the dictator with mountains of skulls in his basement. God looks at that blood-drenched beast and says, "I love you so stupidly, so recklessly, that I already let my perfect son be tortured to death in your place." While the world sharpens the guillotine and screams for justice, and we should, heaven is still holding the door open, whispering the monster's name through tears, begging him to repent before the clock hits 0. That's not weakness. That's a love so ferocious, it makes the cross look reasonable. The dictator slaughtering villages today could be worshiping next to you in eternity tomorrow. That's why God lets the clock keep ticking instead of killing him on the spot. God wants to give them time to turn from their sin. God lets the fire burn you so that one day you can walk into someone else's furnace and say, "I've been here. Take my hand. There's a way out." Picture this. A packed church, suffocating sanctuary, flowers wilting under grief, and a dad barely holding himself upright beside his daughter's tiny white coffin. Then an old preacher steps forward, puts a trembling hand on the father's shoulder, and unleashes a sentence that flipped the entire meaning of the nightmare upside down. Everyone was waiting for comfort. But when the teacher said the 4 most dangerous words at a funeral, "I understand how you feel," the father cut him off with a voice raw from screaming at heaven all night. "You understand? You woke up this morning and kissed your little girl goodbye too? You picked out her coffin dress?" The teacher shook his head, ashamed. The dad stepped closer, tears and fury mixing. "Then, never, ever say that to a man holding his daughter's death certificate, because some pain you only understand when it's carved your heart out with a rusty spoon." God allowed that teacher to eat every syllable he'd once served so casually. Years later, when his own child slipped away in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and endings, the memory of that angry dad at the funeral hit him like a freight train. Suddenly, he got it, viscerally, permanently. Now, when he walks into a room thick with fresh grief, he doesn't open a Bible first. He just sits down, puts his head in his hands, and lets the silence speak until the other person is ready to hear the only credential that matters anymore. Me too. I know exactly how bad this is. Close your eyes and picture it. Your bank account never dips below 7 figures. Every human you meet falls instantly in love with you. Red lights turn green the moment your car rolls up. Your body never ages, your teams never lose, your kids never rebel, and every prayer ends with instant Amazon Prime style delivery from heaven. Sounds like paradise, right? Until about day 37, when you realize you've become a golden calf surrounded by worshipers, bloated with comfort, numb to wonder, and bored out of your eternal mind. Because nothing you have was ever earned, nothing you love was ever risked, and no one, including you, has any idea who you actually are underneath all the perfection. Ard, give a man everything he's ever wanted, and in 6 months he'll be yawning at sunsets. Starve him, break him, almost kill him, then hand him a crust of bread and watch him weep like it's the first meal in paradise. Maybe God lets the darkness come so the light finally tastes like resurrection. My teacher was sitting across from a 20-something guy who wouldn't stop venting. "Man, my mom is always in my phone, always asking where I'm at, always showing up unannounced. She's suffocating me." He ranted for 10 straight minutes like it was the worst curse on earth. Finally, my teacher held up a hand, voice cracking, and said, "Listen, I get it, but I need you to hear me. I would saw off my own arm right now to have my mom blow up my phone one more time, to have her invade my privacy just once more, because mine's been in the ground for 12 years and the silence is louder than any argument we ever had. The kid went white, the room went dead, and in that moment, he realized he'd been complaining about oxygen to a man who'd been drowning without it. Fire a man on Friday and watch him kiss the floor on Monday when they call him back. Starve a kid of friends, and he'll treat every hallway conversation like Christmas morning. Give a straight D student one hard-earned B, and he'll frame that paper like it's a Nobel Prize. Let cancer almost win, then lose, and every sunrise becomes a personal victory parade. Lose one person you love, and suddenly every remaining voice in your house sounds like angels singing. Pain is the brutal tutor that turns ordinary into priceless. I'm not going to stand here and tell you cancer is a gift or that burying your kid is part of the plan. Suffering is a screaming nightmare while it's happening. But once you crawl out the other side with scars instead of a corpse, you suddenly speak a language the unbroken will never know, and you taste joy so deep it feels illegal. Why, God? Is the scream that has echoed from every hospital room and every fresh grave since the beginning of time. And in that moment, when your whole world is on fire, God doesn't hand you a PowerPoint explaining the master plan. He just whispers, "You can't see the tapestry yet." Right now, you're staring at the ugly, knotted underside, hating every thread. Trust me, one day you'll see the front. At 17, Joseph's own brothers ripped off his coat, threw him into a pit, and sold him for the price of a used donkey. For the next 13 years, he wore chains instead of dreams. 10 years as a slave in a pagan land, then 2+ more rotting in a dungeon because a bored housewife lied about him. 13 birthdays in hell, wondering if God had ghosted him. Then, at 30, the prison doors swing open, and the same kid who was trafficked by family suddenly has Pharaoh's ring on his finger. Why the 13-year nightmare? Because one day, millions would eat bread instead of starve, including the very brothers who sold him. God turned the worst betrayal in history into the greatest rescue mission nobody saw coming. Years later, Joseph stands face to face with the same brothers who sold him like livestock, and instead of drawing a sword, he drops a bomb. You meant to murder my future, but God hijacked your evil and turned it into the salvation of nations. Then he hugs them while they sob. Fast forward to the end of your own story. Every coffin, every betrayal, every diagnosis is just the raw material God is repurposing. Because this crumbling planet isn't the destination, it's the departure lounge. Jesus didn't hang bleeding on a cross so you could upgrade your earthly Wi-Fi. He did it to buy you a reservation in a place where death is dead and tears are legal. God could have airlifted Joseph out of that pit the same day his brothers threw him in. He didn't. He could have exposed Potiphar's wife the moment she lied. He didn't. He could have sprung Joseph from prison at 25. He waited until 30. Why? Because the rescue of millions hinged on one man learning humility in the dirt and authority in the dark. Your timeline feels cruel, but it's calculated. The same God who kept Joseph bleeding for 13 years is the God who's letting you bleed today, not because he's forgotten you, but because the future version of you has to be strong enough to carry the weight of the glory he's about to drop on your life. So to you who can barely lift your head tonight, Jesus is holding it for you. He loves you with scars to prove it. Keep breathing. The prison door is already shaking. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.